public schools are failing students in multiple ways. One of the most disruptive is the process by which students are funneled out of public schools and into the juvenile justice system. It's called the school-to-prison pipeline, and there is increasing evidence that it starts as early as preschool. The school-to-prison pipeline primarily victimizes Black students, trapping them in a cycle of incarceration.
I want to believe that every student wants to overcome the societal predictions of what's placed on them because of their race, sex, and the socioeconomic status.
Increasingly, schools are cracking down on small offenses, such as cutting classes or being disrespectful. This is supposed to discourage more serious infractions like drug or weapons possession, but what constitutes as disobedience or disrespect can be very subjective. A study in Texas found that 97% of the state's suspensions were made for subjective reasons, made at the discretion of school administrators, and Black students were 31% more likely to receive discretionary suspensions than white students.
It obviously affects the individual who is actually entering the penal system, but you're affecting communities, you're affecting the economy, you're affecting families, you're affecting school systems.
Disparity can start as early as preschool, when 48% of preschoolers who are suspended more than once are Black. African American boys are 3 times more likely to be suspended or expelled than their white counterparts, and Black girls are suspended at higher rates than any other race.
I want to believe every student is destined for success. They want to achieve, but more times now we can't control certain things that happen in their homes. I had a student years ago, by the time they got to school, they said, hey, I walked through a crack house facility, prostitution. When I get here, I walk through a metal detector and people bother me. And I haven't eaten since lunch yesterday. And you're asking me to sit here in class and learn? There's a challenge.
When students are kept out of school as punishment, they miss lessons and assignment and fall behind academically. They are more likely to be disciplined again, which can lead to further problems. The Texas study found that students who had been suspended or expelled were twice as likely to drop out. Adding to the problem, police officers stationed inside schools. When these officers react overzealously to minor infractions, they make small problems worse. Schools with officers have 5 times as many arrests for disorderly conduct as schools without them. All 25 of the nation's largest school districts have sworn police officers in at least some schools. As widespread protests emerged after George Floyd's death in police custody, Minneapolis School Board voted unanimously to end its contract with the police department. And there is pressure from students, educators, and activists around the country for other school districts to do the same. And there are other solutions as well.
We need more of our educators to take a genuine interest in the whole student as opposed to what they want to teach on a board and so forth. Do not be quick to actually discipline them, but be more mindful of the predicament they may be coming from and have an understanding of why they're doing what they're doing. Now, I'm not saying take away the discipline, but as you're adding that disciplinary act or that consequence, you're explaining why am I doing this? You're explaining the reason I am disciplining you is because this happened and this is how you can fix this down the line. I'm showing a genuine interest of actually being restorative and helping you and moving forward so this won't happen again and be repeated.
There are also proactive solutions, including hiring school guidance counselors instead of police officers. Experts say the best way to prevent incarceration is to provide more equal educational opportunities and to create environments that support all students.
Hey, NBC News fans, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down.
Hey, I want to welcome everybody to another episode of You and the Law podcast show. One of the co-hosts of the show, Virgil Green, and the bearded guy that's sitting next to me that you won't see on camera tonight goes by the name of Cheese Swaggy One. And I'm trying to get our guest, Pastor Jesse Jackson, on to the show. So we're going to get him on and talk about this informative topic about the pipeline to prison in school, Chief.
What's going on, Virgil, man? How you doing?
Hey, I'm doing good, man. I'm doing good, man.
Yeah, a little bit under the weather, man.
Yeah, man.
A little bit under the weather, and I don't want to be blowing my nose and stuff on camera. So out of respect for our listeners. Hey man, I got
go ahead.
I have a favor to ask you, man.
You got a flavor or a favor?
Favor.
Go ahead. What's your
Stop posting pictures of snow, man. Stop posting pictures of snow.
Hey man, you know what? I'm going. Hold on a second, man. Let me bring on the good Pastor Jesse Jackson. Pastor, how you doing?
How you
doing,
man?
Hey, we doing. Yeah, we got a little breakup, but can you hear us?
Yes, sir. I sure can.
Okay. Yeah.
Man of Sigma, man of God, man of Sigma. How are you?
How are you, brother? How you feeling?
A little under the weather today, man, but I'm doing good, man.
Good. I'm so glad to be back with you guys all so much for this invitation.
Well, hey, we're glad to always have you on our podcast. A man of faith and a man of wisdom, and this topic tonight, I know you know a lot about, and we'll get into that. But Pastor, before we get into it, my co-host is on me about me posting pictures of snow, and you know, I'm up here in Minnesota, man, and I'm not used to all this snow, and so I'm doing my impression of being a weatherman and letting people know back in Oklahoma City what I'm dealing with. And so now, so, you know, man, just enjoy the pictures. That's all I got to say.
Okay, Virgil. Moving on.
So Pastor Jackson, for those who maybe the first time listening to our podcast, won't you let everybody know, you know, who you are, what you do, and we'll go from there.
Okay. I am in my 20th pastor of the East 6th Street, the only pastor, the first and only one. Been there, like I said, 20. But when I feel be more involved with community, more involved with the young, so I also in license and begin to teach. And I taught first in a here in Oklahoma City, the Marcus School, and my program at Marcus. I moved to O's, and let me just tell you a little bit. It's called the Making of Men, and so it was class. Not the best way is to educate principally African American, and so I started second grade with them each year. I was fourth grade and fifth grade team, and so the program that sixth grade to middle school, and that's the ones that on the 4-year plan graduated or on the way. We have some that are and did I say kids to be in the community. You different on purpose. Some would become fathers before. None of them would go to the penitentiary. Some of them would do some of the negative things that have influence, and that's exactly have done. So I would that situation as a result. I'm still, but I'm in an alternative, and most of the young men in the system at some kind are either wards to the state or adjudicated. The interesting part, there is a whole section of rules that deals with young folks that are everywhere in regular public schools. I live in a group home, but those that was an Integris or St. Anthony's or some of them day sites, those kids.
Okay.
That's a different challenge right there.
Yeah. Hey, Pastor, we're getting some not a really good audio, and I don't know. I think it's going to be on your end because we're kind of, getting hit and misses of what you're saying. So I want to make sure we got a good audio sound. The video is good. It's just the audio
Okay.
is kind of cutting in and out.
Just some on my end.
So we'll let you try to work that out. You may have to log out and log back in with that link that I sent you because this is a very important topic and I want to make sure that everybody can be a part of this conversation.
Yes, sir. This works for a minute. If not, I have to log out. Should get rid of some of the.
Okay.
Okay.
But
yeah, I'm working with the in there, and that is. But it's on the students that are present everywhere. Some of those, the regular schools, they just have not. They just have not been the same behavior. It's the same thought pattern, the same communities, and really teachers have to be craft. And I just don't believe you don't like. You have to want something good from them. I think to bring them.
Yeah. Well, Pass, I don't know if you saw the opening clip that I played where, they talked about, how this pipeline to prison, how it impacts, our Black youth. And, Pastor, for a very long time, and even currently, people have blamed the school resource officers for being in the schools, that they're the ones that are responsible for kids going to juvenile detention. But Pastor, I'm gonna ask you this question. To me, I think it starts with the schools itself. I mean, give an example. You may have a school resource officer in a predominantly white school. They don't have that problem. You have a school resource officer in a school that is made of minority students, Black and Hispanics, and you have a different mindset of the teachers and the administrators that deals with those students. So to me, a police officer just can't arbitrarily take a student out of the school. That has to initiate with the principals.
Well, it's been the resource officer. I think the resource officer is fruit, and that's the first talk about. But it begins a lot earlier than that. A great and the community.
Yeah.
Tried to do with Marcus Garvey was community to try to strengthen the community. What happened is that no matter what it with these kids, we getting ready to go into the Christmas. So when you got the kid going home for 2 weeks, an environment that there is so most of what he's going to lose during that time. And so you do all this good work, and then he loses all this, and you have to start over and over again. So bigger than just the resource officer, for case that I'm dealing with right now, handcuffed by we're handcuffed. The Department of Human Service have changed the rules, so kids know the rules better than we do, and that there's certain things that we cannot accountable for today that none of us would have been able to get away with doing, and none of us would be able to do the work that we need today to do by the teachers. But these guys sitting, and these guys like, no, I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. They can't make me do it. In fact, they can't even make me go to school. Is that? And hands on kids. I'm just talking about the kind of that you can't. There is nothing to hold over their head, not even grades. Do the work that they are required to graduate. Now, if you give me as a 15-year-old and a 16-year-old the choice, and what I'm probably not going to choose, because I'm my centeredness, thinking of 2 or 3 things, and ain't none of them got nothing. And set up like that. I think that part, that the home and the community part, and the resource officer. Some issues with some resource officer, sure, but several things.
Okay. Hey, Pastor, we're still having some audio quality. And are you on a laptop or your cell phone?
Phone now.
You're on your phone. Yeah, you probably got if you
go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, if you're on your cell phone, maybe you can switch over to a computer, laptop, or something. I think we'll get a better quality sound because it's coming in and out, and like I said, this is a very good topic, and so I want to make sure that we are everything is real clear because we're going to have a lot of guests come on. So if you want to switch that out and then come back in on the link, and we'll be waiting on you.
All right. I think I'm in the right now.
Are you?
I'll shoot this one.
Okay.
All right.
All right, Chief Humphrey, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I will tell you, man, that as a former school officer for many years ago, I will tell you that there were administrators who did use school resource officers to intimidate kids. They would actually say, "Hey, come in. This officer's coming to arrest you. This officer." And then when you go, "Hey, officer, handcuff him," or before they brought the kid in, "Hey, let's scare him or her by putting the handcuffs on him." Well, you don't do that, and
correct.
So, and then a lot of times we have gotten law enforcement involved in school issues, which are totally civil or administrative. It's not criminal. And so when you use a school resource officer to go into a classroom because a child is being loud, and you use a school resource officer to make sure the kids go to class, that in itself can come back to bite you. And a school resource officer program is only as good as the MOU, Memorandum of Understanding, that the schools have with the police department and the police department have with the schools. In that MOU, it should state very clearly what are the duties of police, what aren't the duties of police, and what are the duties of administrators. And so we both, I know in the past, we've used each other as leverage. And that is why you have that reality for some. I'm not going to even say perception because it is true. There have been a lot of kids that have been targeted and have been part of this pipeline to prison just based on the fact that you start writing them tickets, so you take them to juvenile, and then these kids have a record for something that could have been handled in the school. So, yeah, Pastor's right about that.
Yeah. Well, Pastor Jackson, you're back with us. I want to say, I think one of the things that is really concerning is that, we're all adults, and as adults, we make bad decisions. Police make bad decisions. School administrators make bad decisions. You have the school administrator call or get the school resource officer to come in and intimidate an elementary school student or a middle school student, and now that child has got a negative impression of the police. Instead of the police officer saying, listen, that's not what I'm here for, we're not going to go down that road, the police officers kind of buy into what the school wants them to do. So there's fault on both parts, to me, Pastor.
Yes, sir. You know what? I think that this is an issue for teachers and school administrators and everybody. When we go through our training and our professional development, they talk about differentiated learning and they talk about learning styles. And all of us have different learning styles. Some of us have multiple ones. We're auditory learners or we're kinesthetic learners or what have you. And what too many teachers and administrators do is that they make all of the kids fit into their particular learning style and into their box, and it may not be the right box. And
Correct.
They force people in that box. And I think so many resource officers, and I'm just using them as an example right now, they have the same thing. And you can't deal with everybody the same way. Everybody has their own triggers and stuff. And I know, split second stuff, you got to do what you got to do.
Yeah.
But every situation does not require you to be in a bully type situation.
Yeah.
I mean, there's some folks that respond better to you having a conversation like this than they will to you getting in their faces.
Yeah.
Because I mean, it's really only one way to go when you do that.
Yeah, it is. It is. So Pastor Marcus Garvey, that was a private school, wasn't it?
It was a public
charter school.
Yeah.
But it no longer does Marcus Garvey no longer exist. So when you were a part of that, and I heard, back then I heard a lot of great things about it. Did you see a difference in how Marcus Garvey operated versus, say, how maybe Moon operated, or say maybe, another school on the east side of Oklahoma City?
I think Marcus Garvey was unique from all the other schools. Now, and people always compared it to KIPP.
Yeah.
But that's not the comparison, because KIPP is a college preparatory school. Mm-hmm. It had a completely different class. Some of the students that we were dealing with at Marcus Garvey, they couldn't have got in KIPP. They couldn't, academically. And so we had a different focus. It was an African-centered focus, and it was focused on the community. And so we were not only educating them, which required a large commitment from the staff and from the faculty. We got there before a lot of people, and we were required to stay there. We were required to come back. When we had community programs, and part of our job was also educating parents. We had something called Parent University. Because we recognized that if you didn't do something with the family or anything with the community, then you were going to be defeating your purpose. Because you would be sending kids right back in the same situation. It's like giving them a bath, but then putting them back on the same dirty clothes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's not good. So we just had a different focus, and the focus was more holistic, and even the kind of extra classes that we had in there, in terms of African drumming and dance and a lot of the other things that we did. We had everything but athletics, right? Later on, we did get wrestling. We got everything but like football and basketball. And of course, kids, when they reach the 6th grade or 7th grade, that's what they want to do.
Yeah.
And so, we start losing some kids to Moon and to other places because they had the teams that the kids wanted to compete
in. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Pastor, I just want to remind everybody that tonight's topic is what actually is the pipeline to prison. And, I think this was, especially with, we've had all these mass shootings in schools. Some of them have occurred from students themselves. And you made a comment about just everybody learns at a different level.
Yes.
And my kids were in the Middale School District. And I remember one morning, they were in elementary, and I went to the school, took them to school, and I think I was in there talking to teachers or something. And the teachers were very stringent and strict about the students standing with their hands on their side or their hands behind them, kind of like stand at attention. And if a kid got out of line, I remember this one teacher she would lose it. And I walked up to this lady that morning and I asked her, and I said, "Is that necessary?" And she had an attitude with me and said, "Well, it is necessary. You don't understand these kids." And I said, "These are elementary school kids." And I said, and by the way, 2 of my kids are here. And I don't think you should be talking to anybody's child that way, because they are not standing in line. And so, I saw an image of a kid standing in a cafeteria with their hands either beside them or behind them. And then I saw another picture of guys in prison standing in a line to get food in the same position. And so it's almost like, do we not realize what we're doing, Pastor? Because we're so demanding that these kids stand in line. If you step out of line, you're going to get sent to the principal's office, or you're going to get sent to some kind of in-school suspension. And it's like, where is the education part of it?
It's like we only have one speed. And I always use this example. If the only tool in your tool belt is a hammer, then all of your problems are going to be conceived as nails. And, I'd rather not kill flies with a hammer.
Mm-hmm.
And think of the damage that you do with that. But that's basically what we do in terms of discipline a lot, because it becomes a thing of respect, and you want to make everybody do things exactly like you want them to do. And that's not really practical any more than it is for my first grade year old grandson to be in a class where the teacher is going to insist that he sit still. Well, first grade boys don't sit still.
No.
I mean, they don't. They don't. And I really don't know that they can really in first grade. That takes some discipline. That's an entirely different effort. And I think our expectations are outdated, and our memories are not good, because we tell the stories about, well, when I was a child, this is what we did. No, I don't think you really remember things the way you did things.
Yeah. So Keith, when you were in elementary, that's a long time ago for you, man. A long time ago. Did you see the things that we're seeing now in public education?
I did not, and I went to private school. I was fortunate enough. I mean, my parents were able to put me through private school, but I did have a lot of friends that actually did go to the public schools. As a matter of fact, at one point, my mother was a public school teacher, and we used to just look at, here's some of the things that they would say that were going on. Fortunately, unfortunately, some of those kids have did not know the value of discipline, did not know the value of education. Basically thought that you go to school to have fun, you go to school to fight, you go to school to handle your problems. And so, this is third party. Well, I will tell you that my youngest daughter did go to public school while I was in Norman. And, You know, she was there, I believe, right at she wasn't there when we got the school resource program started. But when they had a police department, as you all know, Norman Public Schools had a police department, and that was their main focus. Their main focus was more reaction, more intimidation, more I'm going to write a ticket or we're going to take you to jail. And Pastor, you probably find this interesting. When we did take over that program, we didn't have any records. And you know, as a police department, you're mandated to keep records, especially as a school police department. You're mandated to keep records of arrest, contacts, citations. Pastor and Virgil, we couldn't find any of those.
Are you serious?
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, that's required by state law.
It's required by state law. But let me just share this with you really quick. So when we started the journey to become part of the schools, to be a partner with the school and came to resource officers, Joe Ciano, who was the superintendent at that time, basically said he wanted a partnership. And he wanted a partnership where we were proactive and we were not doing the job that the school administration or the teachers were supposed to do. We were there for the safety of the students and also to help our students understand what a police department's responsibility and to make them feel safe. That made it very clear. And like I said before, when we established our MOU, it was spelled out. Now, I will tell you that first year, the teachers, because they had been so used to what was going on with the Norman Public School Police Department, teachers would not even try to get involved, even if a kid was late. They wanted us to do it, and we made it very clear. So it took us a year to come get on the same page that this is what our responsibilities are. This is what your responsibilities are, and so we are just a society, Pastor and Verb. We're a society of intimidation. We're a society of I'm going to intimidate you. We're a society of enforcement. And our kids are falling victim to that, unfortunately.
If you are in public education and you believe that your only job is to teach and stand before students, I think you are in the wrong profession. We have jobs that go beyond that, and we always have. But I will say this: back when we came along, I know when I came along, we also had corporal punishment in school.
Yeah.
And so teachers handle a lot of discipline, principals handle a lot of discipline, and that's probably why we didn't have resource officers.
You're right. Yeah. You're absolutely right. And you know, man, and especially if you are an athlete, oh my goodness. That was a whole different form of punishment. You know, and I would, you know, you didn't even, and your parents wouldn't even argue. You go home and you tell your parents that you were paddled, you would probably get another spanking. Because what did you do to get paddled? You know, what did you do to receive corporal punishment? What did you do to go to the school? You know, go to the principal's office? Because you know, really and truly, you didn't have a lot of detention halls back then. You just didn't have detention.
Well, my dad was my middle school principal.
Okay.
So wow. You know, going to the office was not fun.
No. Yeah. Well, and you know, I just think just over the decades, you have to ask yourself, as society has changed, and Pam has a comment in the chat room that says, you know, kids are different today. Society is different, and rules of engagement have to be different than when we went to school. You know, and then I think we got another person in the chat room, Nikki, who says pipeline to prison. Pull it up. Pipeline to prison. No father or bad father. You know, the parents play a significant role in the child's education. But when you send your kids to school and kids are subject to more violence than they have ever seen, they're dealing with kids who have other issues going on. How do you, and you have some kids who are just trying to, they're going to school to do what as their parents have asked of them. But when you're dealing with all those external or internal things, Pastor, and then you're dealing with a teacher who has a bad attitude, then you're dealing with a counselor who has a bad attitude, then you're dealing with a principal who has a bad attitude. How do you expect for kids to really respond when they're dealing with all these negative issues?
Man, it is a combustible situation. Because we always talk about bad apples in every profession, and that comes up a lot when we talk about
teachers,
excessive force with certain police officers and things like that. But the same thing works for teachers and administrators as well. You have some that are bad, and we have society that's going on like this. It never crossed my mind all the time that I was growing up and going to school that I would not come home because of a classroom shooting. When I was in high school, most of the boys had shotguns in their trucks on the racks back there. Nothing was ever thought of, in that kind of manner.
That's
I think.
true.
Especially if you lived in Mississippi and Arkansas and Texas and New Mexico.
And this week was like the 10-year anniversary of Sandy Hook.
Yeah.
And then we dealt with everything last year down in Texas at Uvalde. Well, they come in every couple of times a year, every year now.
Yeah.
And none of that was even, it just was not thought of. And so when I say a combustible thing, you have kids with certain different attitudes. You have communities that are not as cohesive as they used to be, in the families in those communities not as cohesive. And you got some teachers that because the profession of education is not valued by our legislators, they're lowering the standards, and they pretty much think that anybody can teach. And so they keep dropping standards. And I think one of the things on the table here in Oklahoma is that you no longer need to be degreed to teach.
Wow.
And so, it's a whole kind of dangerous gumbo that we're cooking now. And if there is no wonder why things explode so often in school. And I think that everybody's at fault. And I think that it's going to take a collective effort. And really, like we tried to do at Marcus Garvey, dealing with the community and dealing with parents and those at home. And that takes more than just somebody who just wants to go to school and teach from 8 to 3 and then go home.
You know what? We're missing another important component in this too. Do our children have a fair chance? And let me explain what I'm saying. If a kid gives a teacher a problem in this class, do you not think those teachers talk at break? And then that child's reputation. I'm not saying that you don't have kids. By no means am I saying you don't have kids that are giving teachers trouble. But if you have a teacher who doesn't understand, especially kids who look like us, and that's all they do is badmouth this one kid. This kid's giving me trouble. This kid won't sit down. This kid won't do this. This kid talk back. This kid this. And then they're having that conversation in the teacher's lounge. And then they're having that conversation on admin days. The whole entire teaching line has formed an opinion of this kid. And do you believe our kids are getting a fair chance when this happens?
Well, Keith, and Nikki says this in the chat, that she says school districts need the right and flexibility to have troubled children removed from the classroom. Nikki may have not been watching the beginning of the podcast show, and some others may have not caught the video clip that we played, where the principal of the schools, his comments were, these kids are in the inner city. They're riding public transportation to get to a school. Then they're walking through these parts of the community where there's gangs, where there is all of the type of crimes that are going on. So these kids are walking to school, seeing all of these things, and by the time they get to school, they may not have had breakfast. They may be late. Then all of a sudden, they're being told you can't go to the bathroom, or no, you can't have an apple or whatever it may be. And now you have just, that relationship with that student is not going to be good throughout the day.
Yeah.
And so as adults, do we not even stop to realize kids are going through a lot of stuff that as an adult you would never go through and probably didn't experience as a kid growing up?
But Virgil, many of them have PTSD for the very reasons that you said.
Yeah.
And I mean, and this is why mental health is so important, and getting this to them. We don't know if they slept last night, or how they slept, or if they had to defend mama, or if they had to defend themselves or a sibling. And some kind of way they got a chance to escape coming to school. And that's why I think our first or even our second effort can't just be to hit them with this force and to make them do what we need them to do. Because there's some folks somewhere else trying to make them do some other things. And they have trauma behind that. And nobody wants to deal with the trauma that these young folks legitimately have. And I want to say there's certain mile markers. And most of the research says if people don't learn to read and don't learn some developmental study habits by the third grade, then it's over. We do know that by the third grade, a kid knows whether or not they like school. Correct. And if they don't like school at that point, it's going to be rough as far as they go. But if they do like school, there is hope. Fifth grade is a mile marker with the test. And I think eighth grade, there's some tests that they have to take in the eighth grade here in Oklahoma. And if they don't pass that test, that reading test, they can't get a license at 16. And they've said for years that the test that these young people have to take in the third grade basically determine how many prison cells they build. Because if a certain percentage is, fail these third grade tests, again, because they know by third grade, the handwriting is on the wall for a lot of things. They know what they got to build. And so you can conceivably go to school in rundown schools, live in rundown public houses, drive rundown cars, ride rundown buses, and then go to prison and have next generation computers.
Yeah, exactly.
If the prison is the best place that you've ever lived, the cleanest place that you've ever lived, that says something about our priorities in this society.
Our society, exactly.
That is so true. That is so true. I got Nikki. I'm looking at Nikki's response, and she said, send kids with trauma back home, so they do not affect others not responsible for their plights. So in other words, what I'm hearing is give up on those kids. Maybe I'm misunderstanding what she's saying, but she's saying send the kids with trauma back home. So you send the kids with trauma back home to where the trauma initiated.
Yeah. Well, and Keith, and then we got a comment from Pam who says, there are a lot of teachers who are in the teaching profession by default. She says by that I mean they couldn't find the job of their dreams or of their choice, and they defaulted to teaching to make ends meet. Not good for the kids or the system. And I think, Pastor, you mentioned something about now there's talk about, because of the teacher shortage, that you can get a emergency teaching certification without having a degree. And I think you also alluded that some school districts are even looking at just saying that you don't have to have a bachelor's degree to become a teacher.
Yeah. They're doing it, and and Oklahoma is leading the way with some of the most asinine laws passed by our legislator. They had some stuff that went into effect last year that state employees could take time off work to sub in classrooms.
Yeah, I heard. Yeah, that was the governor. I don't know where he came up with that stupid idea.
I mean, so you just think that anybody can do it?
Can go into the classroom.
I think anybody can do your job as governor.
Yeah.
So let me take a day off and do your job and see what see how all that works.
Yeah.
But it's people have devalued the idea of education. Public education has been under attack, and it's under attack more than anything else by the state legislature and politicians there that really they want to take public funds and give it to private schools. And they continue to ask public schools to make bricks without straw.
Yeah.
I mean, we're taking away more and more resources, yet we're asking you to do more and more. And if we're spending money, you're making us spend money that we really don't have on testing. And on some of the testing, it's this, you got people that are defining the problem and then giving you the answer in these tests to back up the problem that they're saying, to justify them getting more and more money. But we're not spending on what we really need to spend money on retaining some of the teachers we have, because they're going to go to Texas, they'll go to Kansas, they'll go to Arkansas, New Mexico, and make a heck of a lot more money than they make in Oklahoma.
Yeah, I don't think too many are going to Arkansas. I think Arkansas has the same problem that Oklahoma has. But hey, Pastor, I want to remind everybody that tonight's topic of the podcast is what actually is the pipeline to prison. And I want to get to a comment that Nikki made. And, I think Nikki is, I'm going to pull this up. She says, you want kids to fare better, search for absent fathers and drag those fathers back into the home. Nikki, I can kind of probably, see where you're coming from. But I think, this conversation is about the pipeline to prison. Obviously, when you have both parents in the home, kids are a lot more successful. But also when you have single mothers have raised young men to become very successful. And so you have a lot of women who work, who make sure their kids go to school to get an education. And I'm reminded of the sitcom Good Times. They lived in the project, but they made sure that Michael, Thelma, and JJ went to school, no matter of what their environment was, but they came from a two-parent home. So I don't know, Nikki, are you saying that Black women cannot make sure that their kids who their fathers are absent, that's a problem? Because at the end of the day, I think there's a lot of great examples of a lot of kids who have become, whether they're athletes, Pastor, or whether they become successful in the business world, but they came from a home where it was just them and their mother and not the father.
Well, you had a man that became the president of the United States that didn't have a father.
Exactly.
And you had a woman that became a vice president whose family, whose father left, divorced her mom. But let me say this: in a perfect world, we understand a two-parent household is what we expect. It's what we believe is the key to successful kids. Now, that's in a perfect world. We know that's not possible. So but let me say this: when you tell somebody that because you don't have a father in the house, that's what they hear, you're going to be unsuccessful. You're planting that seed that they can't do it. They can't make it. Now, it's the same thing when they go to school and you ignore the fact that they may have They may not learn. It's like the pastor said, they may not learn as fast as someone else. And I do believe that we do give up on our kids. I do believe that teachers get frustrated, and I get it. Some of these kids do cause you to become frustrated, but there's more kids that don't do that than there are that are frustrated. And I think a lot of times we do paint kids with that broad brush because we think because they look a certain way, dress a certain way. Hell, let's just face it, guys. If it wasn't for school lunch programs and breakfast programs, we have kids that would not even get a meal. We have kids who wouldn't get a meal. So yes, some of these kids are coming to school angry. Some of these kids are coming to school believing that they just have to go to school for no purpose whatsoever. Yeah, I believe the statistics. The statistics are facts. I mean, the statistics are true. We have a lot of majority of the black kids in prison, and also white kids have not had a father figure in the house. They will tell you that. But we still owe those kids an opportunity to grow. We owe those kids an opportunity not to push them into the pipeline. And we just got to realize that. And it's like Pastor Jackson said, our society is just, when you have to go to prison to find the technology, high level technology, or the softest bed you ever laid into, or the warmest meal you've ever eaten, we do have a problem.
Yeah. Well, Keith, and I think Nikki asked a question in the chat room. You are talking about prisons, right? I think, Nikki, what we're talking about is the pipeline to prison. The theme has always been that the police officers have played a role in this pipeline to prison. That's why there's such in recent years, an effort to remove school resource officers from schools. But Keith, you were a school resource officer. I spent some time with the Tulsa Public Schools where we had our own campus police. We had school resource officers in the schools. These officers, over the years and decades, build very good relationships with these students. And some of these officers,
hopefully,
but you hear a lot of good stories where these students were, this school resource officer was in this middle school all the way, and then in the same school where they graduated high school, and they come back. And I've heard stories of people coming back saying, hey, if it wasn't for you being in my ear, being that father figure, there's no telling where I would have ended up. So these guys and women do build relationships with students. And yeah, you do have a lot who are there for the wrong reasons, just like you have teachers who are there for some of them for the wrong reason. So the pipeline to prison, to me, it starts with the discipline that the school has. And let's just think this, in the clip earlier, if you stand out of line, or you're not standing at attention, or you do something, you get sent to the office and you get disciplined. And now all of a sudden you become rebellious and you're finding yourself. So now, hey, take him to juvenile detention. Well, now you have put this kid and his family in the juvenile justice system over something that you should have handled in the school.
Yeah. I mean, you're absolutely right, Chief. I honestly believe that, and believe it or not, that happens often, every day, too often. I want to push back on something that was said in the chat room just a little bit. I think we concentrate always and on fathers, and I take my role as a father and a grandfather extremely serious. I was blessed to be in the home with my father. I've had nothing but good men in my life. I may be the exception to a whole bunch of folks. Mm-hmm. However, I will say this. I think it has always taken a community of father figures. Even if the father was not in the house, there was a coach, there was an uncle, there was a neighbor, there was a teacher, there was somebody and a group of somebodies at church that were able to pour into that young man a scout master, whatever it was. But I'm saying teachers. Like I started with those young boys at Marcus Garvey in the 2nd grade. Let me ask both of you gentlemen here, what was the first grade where you had a black teacher? Not a principal or not a coach, but a black classroom teacher.
For me, it was in the 1st grade.
A black male classroom.
A black male? Oh, I never saw a black male teacher.
For me, it was 2nd grade. It was 2nd grade.
Yeah, for me, I only had, female black teachers from 1st grade up until 3rd grade, 3rd or 4th grade. Yeah.
Well, man, I tell you, to have a black male teacher, somebody who you can really identify with, is a blessing. It was a blessing for me in graduate school to have somebody that looked like me. So guess what it is in elementary school, particularly lower elementary, where you have somebody who's more likely to share the same kind of experiences that you share and more likely to be able to respond in a positive way or in a different kind of way than just sending you to the office. Even if it's nothing but, boy, sit your butt over there.
Yeah.
And I mean, sometimes that's what it takes instead of, let me write you this referral.
Right.
Oklahoma City Public Schools right now is dealing with the Justice Department because of the number of referrals for African American and Hispanics that they have written over the years.
Right.
I mean, so I mean, it's a federal mandate now that we have to deal with discipline in a much different way. Again, because they perceive every kind of thing as an offense to be written up or to be kicked out of school. And when you look at it, folks were kicked out of school for something that basically was trivial.
Yeah, exactly. Well, hey, Pastor, man, we're coming up on the last few minutes of the podcast. And I think, I knew this was going to be another informative topic, especially to have you on with your background. And I think this is like a series of podcasts to have about the pipeline to prison. And so, I think even with the engagement that we've had with people that are listening to the show, we're going to have to get you back on again. And because, again, I think this is just, to hear your insights from, being a father, being a black man, being a father, being in the education and being a pastor. That's a wealth of knowledge right there.
Bless you, man.
Yeah.
I appreciate you.
And also being a man of Sigma. So we got to get that in there, Virgil.
That's right.
Yeah. Well, Pastor,
I appreciate y'all so much, man, and bringing this conversation to light and just having it. Because this is the kind of stuff we talk about in the barbershop, but we don't always talk about it where other folks can listen in.
Exactly. Well, and you know what, and we're going to be going into 2023, and so we're gonna make this another podcast in a series to really talk about this and see how we can help change the culture of this pipeline to prison. So, Pastor, we definitely thank you for coming on and joining us, and happy holidays to you and your family, and we will definitely get you back on in 2023.
God bless you, man. Same to you all. Have a wonderful holiday, and look forward to talking to y'all real soon.
All right.
Appreciate you, brother. Appreciate you.
All right.
All right. Take care.
All right. Thank you all.
All right, Virgil.
All right.